All right. I hope I'm on. I hope I'm on. All right. My name is Suni, and this is my first podcast. Um and the name of it is the 12 Steps, a universal spiritual program. And what I'm going to be doing on this podcast is going through or looking at the 12 steps based on how I see them. You know, and I like to say based on how I see them. When I say that, I don't mean that I created a certain style or a certain view of 12 steps. My view is 34 years and a few months accumulation of being in the 12 step fellowship. And I'm not, at this point, I'm not going to call out exactly one fellowship because the 12 steps are universal, although they originated in AA, and that's where I originated from. You know, I came from AA. Sorry about that. The 12 steps are a product of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where I'm a product of. But however, my spiritual journey or my step journey, I might add, has taken me through various programs. And I'm not going to name the programs. I'm just going to focus on the 12 steps. And that's only because to keep the anonymity of the rest of the programs and focus on the steps. So, thus, I call my program the 12-step journey. And at this point, I'm kind of nervous. I got to say that this is my first time, doing something like this. And so anyway, moving on. I intend to go over every step. However, it won't be in one setting. When as I sit in meetings and go certain places and people talk about steps, they'll talk about the first step, for example, or they'll talk about the second step or the third step, all the way up to the 12 steps and even to the traditions of certain programs. But I like to say there's a few things that must be even done before an individual get to the steps. But first, I want to say this program is for anyone. It's not just for a new person. It could be anybody. You don't even have to been involved in the 12-step program because once you start hearing the principles, I'm sure at some point you'll be able to identify when I say the 12 steps universal, what that part universal spiritual program means. So anyway, to jump back into this thing, the 12-step program, we're going to start, and I'm just going to talk about origination for a minute and give some background history. Alcoholism had become a problem in the mid 20th century. And what happened was alcoholics, they could not find any help in the conventional hospitals, or there was no type of therapy programs that was set out for alcoholics to get better or get well. And what happened was some people, a group of people had came up with the self-help program, and this is just the bottom line. They came up with a self-help program to help people like themselves. And they came up with a group called Alcoholics Anonymous. And what happened inside the Alcoholics Anonymous program was there was a program of recovery that was laid down, that was set down or laid down, and it involves 12 steps or 12 principles of recovery. And from that point on, at some point, the program or the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, they went through their own history. They had a history. And it's a vigorous history. And for those that's willing to look that up and read it, you be doing yourself a good deed. So anyway, at some point, the program took on wheels. It began to grow, and it began to save the lives of millions and millions of people, not only in the United States but all across the world. Then at some point, another program in the 50s grew up out of that. It was called Narcotics Anonymous, and it had a similar history. Its founding members had a similar history of that of the 12-step program of Narcotics Anonymous. And so, making a long story short, what happened was, in Narcotics Anonymous, adapted the steps and the traditions, put a little swing, put a little turn on them, not that much, and grew their program. And in the 50s, I believe, all the way up until, I would say, up until this point, the program of Narcotics Anonymous was formed for quote unquote drug addicts. But what happened was, Narcotics Anonymous, where Alcoholics Anonymous only focused on the use of alcohol, Narcotics Anonymous focused on what is said to, what they say is they focus on the not the symptom, but the which the drugs were a symptom, which is alcohol was a symptom, but they focused on more of a moral type, spiritual type concept. So they kind of like tweaked it a little bit. And then out of that came many other programs. You had Cocaine Anonymous, Fellowship Anonymous, Gambling Anonymous, Sex Anonymous. And then from programs that came out of those were other types of 12-step programs, like codependency. You had Nar-Anon, you had Al-Anon. Members, and Al-Anon was like family members who were married or deeply related to or closely related to people that were alcoholics. And that they were Al-Anon. Nar-Anon was the same thing. Then you also had your codependent programs, people that were, you had like adult children of alcoholics, adult children, and so a whole bunch of 12 steps came up out of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, moving on, these programs had similar steps, that of AA. They adopted similar steps, or what I call mirroring steps. In other words, if a person was a codependent of an alcoholic or an addict or somebody that was gambling, they didn't go to those meetings. What they did was they created their own meetings, and they created their own style of programs to deal with these type of personalities that they were dealing with. Very, very simple. Now, anybody want to take some time and look up some of the stuff I said? Fine. I mean, that's cool. But however, I want to get back to the 12 steps, the 12-step program as it relates to the recovering people that's recovering from the different types of addictions or the symptoms, which is alcoholism, or it could be drug addiction, it could be sex, it could be gambling, or, on and on and on. However, what I like to do at this point is take a step back, and right now I'm kind of nervous, so let me take a little drink. Not a drink, but a drink. Yeah, that was some tea. And I want to talk about, and so how I'm going to do this program is, this particular cast is not for the newcomer, but it is. If this is your first time and you turn on this show and you're hearing about 12 steps and you're hearing about recovery, and you listening to what I'm saying and something you can identify with and ring a bell, fine. However, this program is for a person that has a little experience with 12-step programs. And that's where I'm going to begin. I'm going to begin like, you done made 90 meetings in 90 days. You might have a sponsor. You might have read some literature. You may know the lingo that's used in meetings and so forth and so forth. This is where I'm starting. I'm starting at the person that's not actually new, but relatively new. But also, this is for the person that's been coming for a while. And your mind might be open enough to pick up a little something, pick up some information. Because remember, in the 12-step program, there's 3 requirements: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And in one book, it says, with these, we are well on our way. Now, let me say this. When I start quoting literature, I would not say, well, I got this from this book, or I got that from this book. I got that from this book. For simplicity, and from my view, it's all the same. Our recovery is one. There's no, well, this literature says this literature says that. And the reason why I'm handling it like this is because I believe that spiritual principles are never in conflict. That's all I'm going to say. I believe that they're never in conflict, that you can't use honesty, that in one program it's going to use honesty different than another program is. Another program is going to use open-mindedness, different than another program, or even willingness. So when I say certain things, or if I quote a literature, it's just a quote. And so moving on, when we talk about recovery or getting clean, one of the programs suggests that total abstinence, and I believe they all suggest that if you want to get better from doing something, whatever it is you're doing, you need to stop. The first thing a person needs to do is stop. Now, when you stop doing something, you might need a little help. And I'll say this, some people, in order to get clean, they might have to go to see a therapist, or they might have to take some drug therapy. You might have to do whatever it is you need to do to get clean. That's on the individual. That's not a group decision. I hear people say, well, a person might say, well, I was on methadone. And somebody says, well, you ain't clean. I mean, leave that person alone. And that ain't none of your business anyway. I'll say that too. That person might need to get some methadone. A person might try to stop smoking. They put cigarette patches on. They say, well, you ain't clean because you got a cigarette patch on. Leave that person alone. Just because you stopped cold turkey. Whether it was a cigarette patch, whether you stopped eating, you just stopped eating cold turkey. Matter of fact, you didn't even eat no turkey no more. You went straight vegetarian. But the bottom line is this, a lot of times we have to let a person be where they are and hold our own opinions to ourselves, because if it don't apply to you, let it fly away from you. You feel me? And that's how I feel about that. Person got to get clean the best way they can. And just like the steps is a process, getting clean could be a process from whatever it is, whether it's sex, alcohol, drugs, gambling, whatever it is. The individual has to stop. And everybody ain't going to stop like everybody going to stop. You know what I'm saying? Some people going to need treatment. Some people going to need a drug therapy. They're going to have to be on some Suboxone, So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but that's just, my opinion. So that might lead up to the question of, do I think that if a person is using some type of drug-type therapy like Suboxone or like methadone, are they still clean? I'm going to say this. I'm not going to answer that, and this is not the format. This is not the forum for that. But I would say the person is doing what they got to do to get to where they need to be at. You know what I'm saying? So moving on. A lot of times, I was like listening on YouTube, and I listen to a lot of people when they talk about recovery, they want to jump straight into the first step. Well, the first step says, we were powerless over bond. Powerless, they want to get off of all that. But I would say until a person is conditioned to go into any step, you have to be conditioned to go into a step. And I'm going to say, when I say condition, you have to be spiritually conditioned. First, you got to get clean. And I just talked about that. You got to learn how to put whatever it is down, stop whatever it is you're doing, and go through that process. Now, once you get clean, then there's another decision that has to be made. And that decision is, do you want to recover? Code word for find another way to live. Do you want to do that? That's another decision. Now, once you do it, is how do you want to do it? Some people might just say, nah, I just want to be clean. I'll go to church, or I'll read some books, or whatever they choose. But a lot of us, especially if you're listening to this program, you say, well, I want to, I shot at some 12-step recovery. Okay, then there's the decision. In one book, it says, it talks about having an attitude of intolerance or indifference towards spiritual principles. But the first word I like to look at is an attitude. Like, what's your attitude when you come up in here? I remember what mine was. When I came in the recovery process, first I had to admit I was scared. I was scared as hell. I knew I wanted to stop doing whatever it is I was doing, and I was doing some stuff. I wanted to stop the chemical, but I was scared. But I had reached a point where I had to make an intelligent decision, and my experiences at that point was, man, I was suicidal. I was very much suicidal. The stuff I had did in my life, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, all those negative principles was affecting my life to the point where I could not deny that I had a problem that was going on, and it was bigger than me. Yeah. In other words, my denial was confronted, and would set the stage for me to look at my attitude. Because all before that, my attitude was look at my position, look at my status, and look at where I am, and that person is worse than me. Yeah. That person right there, him right there, her right there. However, my circumstances beat me so bad that, and it's called my denial, that I came up out of it, and I wanted to get clean. So with that decision, I caused myself to be put in a situation where I can get some help. And I got some help. I got clean. I went through the whole process of getting clean. And then there was a person that came to me from the Alcoholics Anonymous program, and he asked me about a decision. He said, yes, son, you can stop that stuff you're doing, but you got another question. Here's the question that you need to answer. Do you want to change your lifestyle? Because if you don't, you're going to end up right back here, and you might even die before you even get here, or you might go crazy. And I'm going to give y'all a clue. Where I was at and the situation I was in, it was quite obviously that I could go crazy. That's right. That's all I kind of like say about that for right now. So anyway, my attitude was adjusted based on the situation that I had put myself in. He told me he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now check this out. Based on, and I was like, in my 30s. So based on my own experience from 16, 17, and 18, I had met a woman that was already involved in the 12-step program before I even knew what a 12-step program was. I like to say Margaret, rest in peace. So anyway, by me hearing about this, I was kind of already primed up. So I asked him. He asked me, did he want to help me? Did I need to get some? Did I mind if he helped me? And I said, nah. That was just the bottom line. The bottom line was, please, sir, help me. And I was introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where I started my step work. But what this man had me do first was he had me look at my attitude. And when I looked at my attitude, I had a bad attitude towards not only myself, but the people, places, and things around me in general. I was basically a negatron trying to kill myself unsuccessfully. So bringing it back up to this point is attitude has to be looked at. Attitude has to be looked at before one can approach the 12-step in an open-minded way. Does that ring a bell? Now, inside, so another thing that programs, a lot of 12-step programs talk about, when they talk about, they says an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. An attitude of indifference or intolerance. So I had to look at my attitude, inventory that, intolerance and indifference towards spiritual programs. And all that's basically saying is whatever program that I'm looking at this time, do I believe this thing can work for me like it worked for other people? That's a question that has to be answered. Do I believe that I can benefit, change my life, change my way of living through this program? And for me, I had to have some examples. And the first examples that I had was the man that came up to me and took and grabbed me by the hand and took me to my first 12-step meeting. The same person I was talking about. I was like 33 years old, something like that. So anyway, my whooping, some people refer to it as the ass whooping. My ass whooping had thoroughly convinced me and opened my mind up that, yes, not only that I could do it, but damn it, I wanted to do it, to do whatever it is they was talking about. So I went to my first meeting, and I learned how to make coffee. I learned how to set a meeting up. I learned how to listen to other people talk because they wouldn't let me talk. They'd just tell me to share my name or something like that. And that's what I did. They got me what's called a sponsor. And like I said, I'm not going to go through what a sponsor is. If you've been around for 90 days, you kind of know what that is. So they got me a sponsor, and this man that took me to my first meeting, the same man that talked to me about my making the decision to recover, he became my sponsor. And he was the one that, back in 1986, walked me through my steps the first time. But he did not take me to no step one. He didn't say, okay, you going to step one. We admitted that we were, powerless, da-da-da-da. Nah. He said, we're going to look at your honesty first. You have to know your own level of honesty. And we sat down, and he had me write what honesty meant to me, what being honest meant to me. Now go look it up in a dictionary. He just said, just write down there, right here in front of me, what being honest mean to you. And then he said, and write down some examples when you were honest. And of course, I sat down there. You know, I want to sound good and look good and all that stuff. And I wrote down honesty. And to this day, I can't remember. But it sure wasn't honest, because I would remember by now. I would remember that. So what I learned was by doing that first thing of what honesty means is what I knew about being honest and how I demonstrated honesty. Now, I know a lot about being honest. I really did. But what my behavior demonstrated was I was not an honest person. And being honest meant more than just telling the truth. It meant more than just being verbal. Yeah, you know, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, or yeah, I got a sex addiction, or yeah, I got an eating addiction, or yeah, I got a drug addiction. Yeah, those are admissions and they're verbal. And that's telling the truth. But that is the first step to getting honest. But honest was explained to me, and what I still hold on to in a recovery sense, is number one, not just admitting something, but looking at the behavior which supports the admission, if I'm making any type of sense. In other words, if I said I was a liar, I made an honest statement. Now, if I said, yeah, I'm a liar, hell yeah, I'm a liar, or yeah, I'm an addict, or yeah, I'm a alcoholic, or I got a sex problem, or I can't stop gambling, then I look at the supporting behavior. Then the next thing is now once I look at the behavior and the behavior is matched up and I'm not denying, I just got honest. Now to go to a whole nother level of honest in the recovery sense is making another decision, is do I want to change? And it's like getting high, you know, or drinking or gambling. You know, you there and you sipping on your drink, and you know you got a problem because, you know, your lights are shut off, your woman left, your kids left, you ain't got no gas in the car, you got about $2 of gas in the car just to get you. You know, you in trouble at your job, and all the evidence point to you having a problem or me having a problem. Then I turn around and I say, yeah, I do have a problem because look, all this evidence. And then the next part of that, it says, but I need to change and I'm willing. Check this out. And I'm willing to change. So until I can understand what honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is, there ain't no sense in going to no steps. And then when I say, until I understand, I know what my concept is. Nobody has to tell me. I'm not going on nobody else's concept of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, but mine. So when I'm saying to the person that's been around, you know, you run into telling people, like I was watching some YouTube videos, and a couple people was talking about, they was saying, step one, you know, this is what step one means, and they was going through the whole step one repertoire, whatever. And I was saying, do you know what honesty mean? Talk about your attitude. Tell me what your attitude about this program is. Because see, me, that's what I need to hear. That's what I need to hear. And I remember when I first started making another 12-step meeting after AA in Detroit in 1987. people was talking about not only step one, there were some addicts that were talking about getting honest. You know, you had your Sandra F's, your William R's, your Mike, your Mike's. Mike, I forgot your forgot your last initial, got the brain fart. You know, you had Mike, you had all these people, man, it was that tough, talking about getting honest, you know. And so, you know, bringing this thing home, that's what I feel needs to be looked at first. If you could talk about your honesty, your open-mindedness, your willingness, talk about your attitude, how your attitude always been throughout your life, you know, then you will plainly see your indifference and your intolerance, you know, and will be much able to approach the spiritual principles that's logged into that the steps project or teach, lack of a better word. Because if I don't know my level of honesty, if I don't know how denial affects me, which my honesty will show me how denial affects me, then my recovery will be enhanced a great deal. In other words, the keys to the steps, the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness will stand on the attitude of intolerance and indifference, if I'm making any type of sense, and I hope I am. So these are the things that need to be covered first before step one can be touched or have a proper, I would say, I ain't gonna say proper because the program depends on the individual, the understanding of the individual. So basically what I'm putting out there is my understanding of this program. And how I understand it is, is what I had to do was this. I had to get in touch with I had to look at my attitude. Because even inside of the place where I was getting my 28-day help, my attitude, even though I got ran up in there, beat up, smashed up, broke up, even though when I ran up in that place, I hit denial. Since the fire was out and my butt was smoldering, denial kicked in and said, maybe for them past 2 weeks, I had a stroke of bad luck. Yeah. I had forgot that I was beat up, broke up, and tore up from the flow up. Got all about that. And that was a pattern of mine. See, when I was in something and it was and it was tearing my behind up, I was ready to throw my hands up. Yeah, I'm surrendering. You know, I ain't gonna do it. No, it was like getting a whooping when I was little. You know, my mama used to tear my ass up, right? I say, Mama, I ain't gonna do it no more. I ain't gonna do it no more. I promise I ain't gonna do it no more. And then when she stopped that whooping, guess what? I eased into it, and I done it again. And and that's another reason why I say the honesty level has to be looked at. You know, yeah. And so what I found out was, and not so much that I found out, one of my missions is that, no, I don't give in too easy. I could take a butt whooping up until a certain extent. And so taking a step back, you know, looking at being honest, being open, being willing, and how they affect my attitude, and how my attitude is affected. My phone going on. Oh, I got this number, y'all. So I don't know if some people called in or not, but let me check. Nah, did nobody call in. So anyway, and I spending a lot of time of talking about the spiritual principles. Let me put my phone right here so I can see it. So I had to spend a little time talking about spiritual principles. Excuse me, talking about the keys to the steps, and also the foundation that I needed to be on before I can even approach step one that everybody likes to send everybody to. And then when they send them to it, all we're hearing is basically a drug law. And if you've been around for a while, what you'll understand, what I understand is, after I was around for a while, that step one, and some people say, well, you know, step one is the only step that that the book mentions drugs or alcohol or whatever. You know, I'm gonna say, you know, if you in AA, it's a little bit different because the word alcohol appears. But however, I'm talking about, you'll find out that the symptom, your major symptom that rode you into recovery is more spiritual in nature than it is a physical thing. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know how to use my phone yet on this thing, so I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot right here, and I'm gonna look and see what's going on my Facebook. So anyway, moving on. I'm gonna ask myself, what kind of job am I doing so far, self? All right. I need that. So going through what I just talked about over the past 35 minutes, going through the history of the 12-step programs, and then going into what I believe really needs to, individual that's in recovery should have an understanding of what's going on. Well, of when you look at your literature, what it is that you need to really be first paying attention to. I think that when the individual understands the type of attitude that one should have, and I say should have when they approach a 12-step program, the reality of their own attitude. Are you coming in with an attitude of intolerance or indifference? Are you coming in ready to tear some shit up? Is your attitude all bad and negative? Are you a negatron? You know, everything is just negative. And see, negative don't have to be somebody coming here, you know, crying and moaning and groaning. It could be some people that's coming in here thinking they're gonna wreak havoc on the fellowship, run some games, sell some dope, or come in prostitute, and a lot of stuff exists. It exists in 12-step programs. They're gonna come in and they're gonna, we have people that's gonna come and get newcomers, but also we got newcomers coming in that's gonna, and their attitude is one of you just coming off the streets or wherever it is you coming off of, and you want to hurt somebody. You know, so it's a two-way street, and so that's why attitude should be, and I ain't gonna say has to be, should be looked at. Attitude should definitely be looked at. So, how's your attitude in recovery? You know, sit down and even if you've been around for a while, you know, years and years, sometimes sit down and write your attitude out about recovery. Take a look at it and show somebody. You ain't got to show your sponsor all the time. Go find somebody else that's been around for a year. Come and go over my attitude with me. You know, talk about your honesty. And I ain't talking about that telling the truth part. You know, I'm talking about the part that says, where you at, that you admitted this, you accept that, but where you at with the change in this? And I'm going to say this. Anybody going around here blaming people or comparing and not identifying, you definitely got some work to work on. You know, because that's what people do. You know, you present a person with a problem, they say, well, you know, you do that, such and such and such do that, you know, but it's not about that or them or they. You know, it's about you. It's about me. At the end of the day, it starts with me. At the end of the day, it'll end with me. So anyway, now once I've looked at my attitude, once I looked at my honesty, my open-mindedness and willingness, you know, how open am I really? Well, I'm open as long as everybody's doing what I think they should be doing. That's how open I am. I'm willing until it's my turn to take the responsibility on that I really don't want to take on. And I'm willing as long as. So as long as is in the quote unquote, as long as is in the equation, well, I got conditions on my recovery. I learned that a long time ago. So when dealing with the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness which are the keys to the steps, it'll reflect back on my attitude towards my own recovery. If I can get all those 4 elements, then the indifference and the intolerance towards the spiritual principles will be greatly reduced if out the way. And and I ain't gonna say completely, because everything is a process. So I'll say it'll be out the way until I reach the next stage and the next level in my recovery, if I'm making any sense. I believe that I am. I believe I'm making a lot of sense. So this being said, once I review these, the things that I just talked about, I'm ready to approach step 1. Because step 1 in any program is an honest admission. It's a step of honesty. And in most programs, it says, we admitted that we were powerless. And I'm going to stop right there. It says, we admitted that we were powerless. Now, once I'm making the mission, my attitude, there's attitude again. My attitude will reflect the degree of my admission. For example, if I say, well, I admit that I'm powerless over my addiction or alcoholism or sex, then my quote-unquote reservation or my excuses, and let's call them what they are, really, my excuses that I have, in other words, do I have any excuses? Well, now, if I got any excuses, then I'm not being honest. But if I had no excuses and I'm willing to take full responsibility of that admission, then I'm ready to move to that I'm powerless. And when I say I'm powerless, only thing I'm saying is that whatever it is, use me, I don't use it. I can't take one, I can't smell one, I can't eat one, I can't use one, I can't do nothing. No, I don't want to say I can't, because I can. But when I do, there's an adverse effect on 2 levels. One is the spiritual level. I feel that I have let myself down. There's an emotional and mental setback, or I have some feelings about what I've done. In other words, I don't feel like I'm in control. I feel like the thing got me. So that's one part. And so the reservation has to be looked at. or the excuse. Why I do that? I did it because I want to. Well, I felt like, well, I didn't do a whole lot. And I just did a little bit, So that'll let you see. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because really that's a marker showing you where you really at with what you're doing. Well, where you at in this particular step that involves honesty. It shows you where your honesty, like we used to say a long time ago, it shows you where your honesty program is, your program of honesty. Because honesty is a program within itself. Open-mindedness is a program within itself. So is willingness. How about that? And attitude is just, and I ain't gonna say, I don't want to minimize it by saying it's just, but attitude is the way you feel about it, I guess, But I'm not gonna get stuck on that. I'm just gonna kind of move on. I got a few more minutes that I'm gonna run this thing into, and so for right now, I'm just gonna stick into the where I'm at inside of the first step. And then next week we're gonna come in, we're gonna move into, we're gonna pick it up from here and then move on to where we move on to it from. So anyway, and this will be posted on YouTube. I don't know how I'm gonna get it up on here, but I have to get this thing up on YouTube. So anyway, going back to the first step, it says we admitted that we were powerless over, and some says alcohol, some says our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. So taking a moment and looking at the honesty of being powerless, meaning that I had no control, that the stuff controlled me, I don't control it, and I have to look at where I'm at with it, or how I'm feeling, how am I feeling, where I'm at emotionally about it, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. If I say, for example, very simply, I'm not going to drink no tea, no more, for whatever reason that I come up in my mind that I'm not going to drink no more tea, and I turn around and I drink some, I have just compromised my honesty towards myself, because I have done something. I verbally said something, and I went against it verbally, and I demonstrated in the action. So in the mission, in the action goes against, which triggers feelings and emotions of what? Guilt, shame, embarrassment, anything I want to put with that. Feel me? Anything else I want to put with that. So that's the work I would have to put, into the step one process. And step one is a process. Don't mean that I'm just going to just get step one. I'm just going to run up and I'm just going to get it. No, I'm, from my experience and dealing with any of the steps, there's a process. And the process deals with how I'm using the keys. And what are the keys? The keys are the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness. That's what it is. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, coupled with my attitude. These are what moved me through the steps. So going back to step one, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives, and it's spelled L-I-V-E-S, had become unmanageable. Now I want to point out to a little word here, and it says had. Why does it say had? And had is a past tense. Because what's going on is I'm looking back at a situation that I've already been through, and I'm collecting the data, or I'm looking at the experience, and I'm reliving that experience of what happened, and I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, this is what I did right, and this is what I did wrong. So I'm inventorying something that has happened, not that's happening. It happened already. For example, getting clean. So let's say if the alcohol or the drugs or the gambling or the smoking or the sex or the drama, because people are addicted to drama too. Let's say those were the primary symptoms of the disease that were expressing it, that was showing me that the disease is active. And I've went through some things. I lost some money. I lost money. I lost jobs. I done suffered a lot of losses, even to the point where probably to the point where I was contemplating, if not attempted suicide. What I'm doing at this point is I'm looking at what happened, and I'm using the keys of honesty and open-mindedness and willingness, and looking at my attitude, and I'm taking the inventory. That's what that had is. Had become unmanageable. And I'm looking at the unmanageability that got me to the point of where I am or where I was at the time that I made the admission. Yeah. So when I'm looking at step one, there's an inventory that has already taken place. Mike Johnson, that's his name. Mike Johnson would demonstrate on the board about step one and the step one inventory. The step one inventory validates the admission. I don't make an admission based on what I think in my head. Is not what I think in my head. Is based on not only what I think in my head, but what I have written down and what I looked at. And I admitted to it. But the second part of the mission will come up when I look at the changes that I made to make. When they say, boy, what you gonna do about all the stuff you just done? Yeah, I say, I stole the color TV. I took the microwave. I took all the kids' Christmas toys. I stole all the food stamps. I went to jail. I did 10 years. But the question is, what am I going to do? That's what I'm looking at. And that's what step one is designed to do. It's designed to show me what I've done. Can I get honest about it? More than just giving a verbal statement on the stuff, but I come back out with my little plan of action. Yeah. So anyway, that's how step one works. So starting with all the way from the beginning to the attitude, to the honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness, to looking at my attitude of saying, okay, can this thing work for me? My honesty, my open-mindedness, and my willingness. My attitude of intolerance or indifference toward the spiritual principles of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. See, I had got beat down to a point where I didn't think anything would work for me. I didn't. I was hopeless. I thought I was doomed to be whatever it is I was going to be for the rest of my life. That was my attitude. And somebody that was just like me, or I thought was worse, gave me some hope. I guess when they told their story or whatever it is they did, I had got some hope. And I knew I wouldn't have to be like that. So anyway, wrapping this thing up, I got a few more minutes left, and then I'm going to shut it down. This podcast, 12 Steps, a universal spiritual, what did I say? I got to look at it again. Well, the 12 Steps, a spiritual universal solution for right now. I mean, so we had to start at step one. And then we're going to go from step one to the 12 steps. And like I said, next week, I'll pick up the calves from where I left off, and I'll go from there. Today we talked about, not just going into step one, but how to approach step one. There is an approach for step one, So, my name is Suni. I've been in the 12-step process for 34 years and a few months now. And I'm just doing what I do, this is for me, and if you benefit off of it, and I hope somebody do, fine. So step two is coming up next week. We're going to talk about step two. And step two is we came to believe. And now, when I use the version of the 12 steps that I will go back and forth from will be the AA 12 step and the NA, because that's where I've been. So I'm sharing my experience, my strengths, and my hopes on the steps. So then again, I will talk about step two next week. I'm finishing up on step one. We're going to go into step two, and we're going to talk about that we. What is that we? In the NA steps, every step's got we except for 12. So what is the we? Well, I look at the we not as the program. Like right now I'm in my basement, and I say we. I'm not talking about everybody in the program. When I speak of we, I mean me, myself, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. That's what I mean when I say we. Excuse me. And the reason why I say that is because that's my whole makeup. My whole we is me, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And that's how alcoholism or whatever that symptom was that I used affected me. It affected me in all areas of my life, or any area. So I'm looking at mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So when you hear me say we, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about me mentally, my physical aspect, my mental aspect, my spiritual aspect, and my emotional aspect. So we're coming up on an hour. I got about 3 minutes left. And I'm going to take a little time, and I'm going to talk about me and then and recovery. Recovery has been, it's going to a new level because of what's going on around us today. Let me say this. Recovery can't be limited. It'll never be limited. Just like it grew in the early days up under Dr. Bob and Dr. Bill, just like it happened with Narcotics Anonymous and any other program. We going through different levels. And so, making a podcast, Zoom meetings, all that. This is what we doing. And so this is how I'm doing. This is how I'm share. My name is Suni. My email address is S as in Sam, 2728 at netzero.net. My podcast number is 317. Hold up, let me get my podcast number out, because I got to be here off here in 1 hour. My podcast number is 317-344-9752. You can leave me a message. I'm going to try to get to the point where next week, hopefully, I'll be able to take phone calls. Maybe some of y'all want to call in. We can have a discussion and talk about some things. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with that. But like I said, my name is Suni. I'm a person in recovery. I thank God for my life today. And we're going to talk about the God concept. So, all my agnostics and all my people that don't believe in God, come on back. All right, thank y'all.